So something rather different, not mechanical, not electrical, actually bodywork. Now you'll have noticed probably that the quality of the paint in this car is well, rubbish, and there's reasons. 50 years of, well, some of which have been parked in a field or something in all likelihood, but partly due to the standards of the early 1970s and yeah, 50-year-old fiberglass. So I'm going to have a little go at improving some of this, and in particular this spot here, which I'm going to show you. Yeah, it's particularly bad just there. Here's my straight edge, and looking at the gap, it is getting on for a whole centimetre. And that isn't because the door's too high either, because it barely fits at the bottom. And then we've got similar situations further back, where it's a great big gap here, and a little tiny gap just there. It's almost like the whole door skin is a little bit, it should have been turned that way a little bit, but even that's not quite right, because yeah, I mean, it's not too far off. Anyway, so I think what we're dealing with here is low volume fiberglass manufacturing from the 1970s not being quite as good as it might have been, and I'm pretty sure that many other fiberglass car manufacturers have suffered from the same thing. Lotus. Anyway, so I'm going to have an experimental go of improving particularly this one. Now, it's quite easy to increase the size of a gap, but it's less easy to reduce the size of a gap. But anyway, I'm just going to see if I can put a layer of filler on here. Just build this up slightly. At least it'll stop some wind noise. This won't be possible to do in one go, I'm quite sure. I've noticed that the panels on this car kind of fall away slightly. This has got quite a soft edge on it, as an example of that. So it's something to do with the way the mould was created, I think. If this doesn't work, I can always grind it off, I suppose. I always think it's very much like icing a cake. Doesn't taste as nice though. Because there's zero structural requirement from this. Right, so maybe a little bit more right in there. Right, I think we'll leave that one there. Well, that's better, but it's still low just there, so I'm going to put some more on. Now it's set, well, it's set actually, even before I try any kind of smoothing off. The level's nearly there. I'm trying to put the filler where I want it, not where I don't want it, where I also have to be rubbed off again. So I said at the beginning of this sequence it was about 8mm, but that was depending how you measure it. If you measure it perpendicular to the surface, it was a lot less than that. It's only if you measure it vertically, which on a sloping surface such as sloping already, that's not really the fair thing to do. Now that's nearly there, which I will show with the ruler that I used earlier on. In fact, it still isn't touching. Obviously I can't completely redesign the car. I can only improve it a little bit. Right, so I'm doing this. This is what, 80 grit, I think. I'm doing it while the stuff is still relatively soft. I still maintain my comparison with icing a cake. Can't take too much off, otherwise you'll just end up putting it all back on again. I need to come around the other side. This is working out alright actually. I'm trying to mimic the curvature around here. Yep. Let's open the door. I think one of the good things about this is that, yeah, opens quite widely there. Mustn't go in too deeply there because that's where I was trying to build it up. Well, that's a lot better. Way better. Where's my little ruler? What surprises me is that having built the wing area up, in actual fact, it does not appear to have made the ruler lift up, which indicates that the wing is kind of dropping down as it comes up to the join. I'm not sure. Possibly I could do a little bit. Possibly I could do a little bit more of that. I think I'm well into diminishing returns at this point, so perhaps I'll work on something else. Now here's a case in point. If I do this, it's obvious the front edge of the door drops below the level of the back of the wing. So you might say, well, push the bottom of the door out then. But if I go to the bottom of the door, it's just right. So that indicates to me that the front edge of the door needs to be built up, and possibly the back edge of the wing just here too. We are very much dealing with finessments. Is that a word? I'm going to give that a go, I think. It's probably not as big as the first pot. as far as this, thanks very much for watching. And in case you haven't already, please do consider subscribing.